When I was a young lad, my father used to take me out of school, primary school, and we used to go to Dublin. I was 9, 10, 11 years of age to buy second-hand cars. My father was he had a garage and a petrol pumps, but he was also a car dealer. Sold some new cars, but truth be told, they were mainly second-hand cars. But one thing that struck me one day when I was asking him, and I was only 9 or 10, about such and such a car, we were after being in Blackrock at Maxwell Motors. Maxwell Motors was a top south side Blackrock car dealership. It had Rolls Royces, it had MGs, it had the very top brands. Maxwell Motors. It's gone now, I think, because the site was ideal for property development, and I think it's gone, but it was a BMW dealer, of course, as well. But one time I remember asking my father, why did he buy such and such a car, or did he think such and such a second-hand car was a good buy? And he said he thought it was a good buy. He said it comes from a good stable anyway. And when he said I thought it comes from a good stable anyway, I couldn't figure out what he actually meant, because I was thinking to myself, this is a second-hand car. It's either a good one or a bad one. How does the fact that it comes from a so-called good dealership affect it? The car doesn't know where it comes from. But of course, I missed the point. I missed the point that the dealership, in taking in cars, would only hang on to decent cars to sell, and would get rid of the crap, get rid of the flotsam and jetsam, and sell it into the trade and not sell it to the general public. So since then, and it's a lesson I've learned about many things, but taking on, for example, an employee who may come from what you might describe as a good stable. My father might describe it as a good stable. You can rest assured that the likelihood is the training that person has got, the standard operating procedures that they've been trained in, the practices that they've seen, all of that will be manifest in the training that they got, and why it makes a difference to get someone from a good stable. Equally, you could get someone from a bad stable, and if you do, you could be taking on a person with a lot of bad habits, poor standard operating procedures and so on. But just going back to the car analogy again, my father was buying second-hand cars, and he only bought the cars from a few dealers in Dublin. Maxwell Motors was one of them, and he could rely on Maxwell Motors selling them a good car, because they didn't sell crap. Any crap that they had, they sold it off in the trade. And my father was in the trade, but he wasn't buying at trade prices per se. He was nearly buying at retail prices, because he wanted to be sure that what he was buying wasn't going to be a pile of trouble, and that he could sell it on in confidence, and with confidence and in comfort. And as I say, the same thing applies when you're taking on somebody who may come from a good stable or not such a good stable. It does make a difference. But if you have engaged in buying and selling cars, for example, from the age of 8 or 9 or 10, and you've watched negotiations going on, and you've seen the tactics, and you've seen the ploys, then it gives you a fairly good grounding in terms of having some real skills for later in life when you're negotiating as a solicitor, or even as just a property buyer or seller. It's negotiating skills are very, very useful. But it's an interesting point, the confidence that you might have in a car or a horse or a person coming from a good stable. And the good stable has to do with the culture, with the ethos, with the standard operating procedures. They're vital. And that explained to me how, even though the car didn't know where it come from, the car didn't know because it's an inanimate object. The point is that the decision was made by the garage. the people buying in cars and taking trade-ins, they were making the qualitative decisions as to good cars. And again, where I buy my cars, I buy mine in Grange Motors and Toyota, Grange Motors in Mullingar. I know that if I buy a car there, and I've bought a few cars there for myself, the wife, kids, I know I'll buy a good car simply because they have a qualitative assessment or criteria of stuff that's coming in. And if stuff coming in is not up to snuff, is substandard, then they don't sell it. They sell it in the trade. That's what I mean by coming from a good stable, and it is important, and it's the same principle will apply to many, many things, including taking on staff. Hope you find the video useful. If you do, I'd appreciate if you hit the thumbs up button down below. It's the 2nd of May, I think. Yeah, 2nd of May, 2025. I'm down the Canal Bank here in Enfield, and it's another beautiful day, and it's a bank holiday weekend coming up. We'll go over here now and just have a look down the stretch of the canal here. This will be a very good spot now for me to fly my drone. I'll be able to fly it down the canal there and back up, and I wouldn't have to worry about trees or built up area or people or that sort of thing. I might even do that at the weekend now if I get a chance, and if the weather stays up, and I could actually take it off that little table there and fly it down the canal. Anyway, I hope you find the video useful, and I hope you understand what I mean about getting a car from a good stable, or indeed a person. Hit the thumbs up button down below. Thanks a lot.